beneficiaries, or sponsors. Encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Health and Wellness Monday, and our topic for today is what you need to know before you start chemo. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the Drive F5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. In the last episode of Warriors Talk, Marshall Harris and I discussed becoming a cancer boss. You can head over to YouTube and type in Intellectual Radio. Stay connected for any episodes you may have missed. The quote of the day is, "You are allowed to scream, you are allowed to cry, but do not give up." Here is your trending topic for today. According to the Washington Associated Press, President Joe Biden has unveiled a long-awaited proposal for changes at the U.S. Supreme Court, calling on Congress to establish terms, limited, and enforceable ethic codes for the court's 9 justices. He also is pressing lawmakers to ratify a constitutional amendment limiting presidential immunity. The White House on Monday details the contours of Biden's court proposal, one that appears to have little chance of being approved by a closely divided Congress with 99 days to go before the election. Still, Democrats hope its focus on voters as they consider their choices in this tight election. The Democrats' nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris, who has sought to frame her race against Republican ex-President Donald Trump, is a choice between freedom and chaos. He said court fairness has been called into questions following recent decisions. The White House is looking to tap into the growing outrage among Democrats about the courts, which is a 6-3 majority issuing opinions that overturn the landmark decision on abortion rights and the federal regulatory powers that stood for decades. Biden is actually calling for doing away with lifetime appointments to the courts. That he says Congress should pass legislation to establish a system in which the sitting president would appoint a justice every 2 years to spend 18 years in service on the court. He argues the term limits would help ensure the court membership changes with regulatory and add pressures to the predictability of the nomination process. He also wants Congress to pass legislation to establish a court code of ethics that would require justices to disclose gifts, refrain from public political activity, and refuse themselves from cases in which they or their spouses have financial or other conflicts of interest. Biden also is calling for Congress to pass constitutional amendments, reversing the Supreme Court's recent landmark immunity ruling determined former presidents having broad immunity from prosecution. That is your trending topic for today. And we know that he has less than 100 days in office. And so he's trying to get some stuff done. And we're just going to see how this Congress is going to be able to participate in getting those things done before he gets out of office. If you are tuned in on any form of social media, do me a favor, like the show, share the show, and invite someone else in on the show that you feel may benefit from this valuable information. And remember, you can follow Warriors Talk on all forms of social media. Just type in @Warriors Talk with the number 1. Our topic, what you need to know about starting chemo. So before you start chemo, when the doctor tells you that you have cancer, right? If this is a cancer to where you're going to need chemo, then they're not going to allow you to go into it blindly, right? They're going to educate you on the type of chemo that you're going to receive. They're going to educate you on how many sessions, how many rounds, how many infusions you're going to receive. And you should know the names of the chemo as well. And I would say if they don't tell you, then ask them so that you can take that information, Go to the internet, look up what those side effects are for that particular chemo. So I would say the first thing that you would do before you start chemo is to pray, is to pray. And you're praying that God allows you, your body, to get through this chemo. The chemo is something that's really toxic. And I always say that people don't die from cancer, right? They don't die from the actual cancer, but they die from the treatment or the side effects from treatment, because everybody's body is not created equal. So everyone cannot withstand the toxins that are being pumped into their body. So the first thing you want to do is you want to pray and ask God to get you through this chemo period so that you can come out with your immune system still intact, because you're going to find yourself having to rebuild your immune system, because not only is the chemo, the toxins, wiping out the bad cells, but it's also wiping out the good cells as well. So you want to make sure that you are putting the fuel back into your body once you are done with chemo. Hello, Instagram. Thank you guys for tuning in. Facebook, remember to like, share this video so that everybody can get the information. Number two, what you need to know before starting chemo is to get yourself mentally prepared. This is not only going to be a physical battle, but this is also going to be a mental battle. And you want to make sure that not only your physical is intact, but your mental as well. What do you do to make sure that you're mentally in place? First of all, you're going to have to make sure that you are seeing a therapist, going to a counselor. And I know there's a lot of negative things when it comes to seeing a counselor or therapist. People want to label you as being crazy, or you need help, or they'll tell you, oh, you could get through it, or they'll tell you just to pray. But yeah, you pray, yes, but also get you some help, because guess what? In the middle of the night, when you're going through your depression bouts, and there will be depression bouts, who are you going to talk to? You may not be able to pick up a phone and call a friend. So in that case, you're going to pray. Or hopefully you have had a session with a therapist or a counselor to where you can recall that session and bring you back on track. Don't rule out getting help mentally. Why? Because you're going to need it just as well as the physical. Just as well as you're trying to heal that physical, your mental is going to have to be healed. You can't do it. It goes hand in hand. There's no healing the mental without the physical. Something is going to lag, or something is going to be imbalanced. And you want to make sure that if you're healing all the way around, not just in the physical. Hey, Jakina. Not just in the physical. So just make sure that you ask your doctor, because sometimes they may not say, do you want to see a counselor? Are you having any issues, any thoughts about depression or or suicide? I mean, people with cancer have committed suicide because they don't want to go through chemo. They figure like the cancer gonna take me out anyway, so I might as well just take myself out. You need to talk to somebody. I encourage you to talk to somebody, and talking to somebody doesn't always mean talking to your mom or talking to your sister. Sometimes you need some professional help in order for you to get through this. Your mind has to be intact. So before you go through chemo, what they're going to do is they're going to want to put a port inside of you. And this port is for the chemo to pass through and be able to get through you quicker. Now, they could do it through your veins, but they discourage doing the chemo through your veins because, number one, they have to always try to find a vein, right? You see them tapping on your arm, and if they can't get it through your arm, they want to go through your neck. Someone want to go through your foot. Like, it's a lot of different things. So they do what they call a port, which is like an outpatient surgery. Um, and it's on the right side where your heart is, and they just make a little small slit. I think it's on the right. I'm almost positive. They make a small slit. Sometimes I have to look and see what side it is. They make like a little small slit and it's so little, and they put this little port inside of you, and it's like a long tube to where they put the chemo in there. So every time you come and you have chemo, they're hooking the chemo up to the port, and it's going to go directly through that port. And trust me, um, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to feel it if they're going through that port. Sometimes you'll feel like a little pinch at the beginning when they're hooking it up, but other than that, you don't feel it. And the surgery, because it is a surgery for them to put it in, it's an outpatient surgery. So you come in early in the morning, they're going to put you to sleep. I remember being out and I woke up and it was there. So it takes a little bit to heal. And then once you're done with treatment, when they know that you're absolutely done, and they feel like you're not going to be getting any more treatment, only then would they okay it to be removed. I think mine was removed maybe 6 months to a year after. I'm almost, I'm sorry. How do you move it? Oh, they'll cut where it is and he just pulled it out. So yeah, I went and I still have my port. I have my port at home. Yeah. So when it's time to come out, I went. He just numbed me right there, was talking to me as he was taking it out and just pulled it right out. And just I don't know if he might have stitched me like a couple of stitches to stitch it up, and that was it. And so I just have this little like scar where the port was. But the port is better than them having to go through your veins. You don't want them to have to go through your veins every time you have to get chemo, or even when you have to have your blood drawn. They're going to go through that port. If you have a port and you go to the doctor, they're going to go through that port. I would say if they offer you the port, get the port. It's just so much safer than having the wear and tear on your veins. She said, Amen. Um, to be your whole, complete, healthy self, you must put in the work physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Oh, Jakina, I totally agree. I think some people just be like tunnel vision when it comes to cancer and they just thinking about the physical, right? And a lot of times you neglect the mental, sometimes you neglect the spiritual. My spiritual came first. Before I could do anything else, I had to have my spiritual intact before I went into treatment, because I felt like there was no way I was going to be able to make it unless I was able to have my relationship with Jesus Christ intact. And then I was able to say, okay, I'm ready to go through treatment, because you want to come to him. I'm asking him to heal me. You want to come clean. You don't want to come with, dirty hands and you're asking him, oh, forgive me. And he like, heal me. I want you to heal me. But then you haven't asked him to forgive you for your sins. And you have to take care of that part of it first before you are asking for healing. So yes, I totally agree. It's a balance. So don't neglect, just because you're going through it physically, don't neglect the mental. Don't neglect your emotions or the spiritual. She says, I still have a port in due to several blown veins. Oh, wow. Wow. PIC lines and central lines, I don't have any vein access. Oh, my goodness. See, that's all more reasons for you to have a port. And I wonder, was this due to them just constantly? She said blown veins. So I'm assuming it's due to them constantly going to these particular veins, just constantly trying to get in there. And it's a lot. You know how little that vein is. It's really thin. And if they're constantly poking every single time you go in there, then it's going to damage it. It is. It's going to damage it. So you have to make sure that you're telling them when you go, oh, I need you to go through the port. I don't need you to go through my arm. And for those of us who have, what do you call it? Where you can't, I don't, it's not neuropathy. I want to say neuropathy, but neuropathy is the opposite of it, where you can't, where you remove the lymph nodes from lymphedema. I don't know why I forget that lymphedema. So for those of us who have lymphedema, we cannot, like my right arm, I cannot get the blood drawn, or I can't get the blood pressure taken in my right my right arm. So if they try, which I should wear a band, one of those little medical alert bands. So if something happens to where I can't tell them, then they know not to go through their arm, because a lot of times they'll be the first that they want to go through their arm, and you're like, no, you can't go through this arm. They're like, why? It's because, oh, I have lymphedema in this arm, so I don't want you to go through this arm. And they would try to go through it, and then um since they never went through my arm, but I was told that it would actually swell up, and it'll make it worse. And this arm swells up. I'm supposed to wear a sleeve on this arm, but a lot of times I don't wear the sleeve, because the sleeve is supposed to keep the swelling down. But sometimes it's just depending on the clothes that I'm wearing, I can't even get the sleeve on. So when you're shopping, you have to make sure you're buying clothes that's not going to be tight on the arm, so that when you're putting on that sleeve, you'll be able to breathe. Like if I'm flying or something, I'll put the sleeve on so that it won't swell while I'm flying. Or if I'm doing something that causes me to use my arm a lot, I'll put it on. Um, yeah, so you just have to make sure that you're telling them what the deal is about your arm. Chiquina said, make sure every time they have access to your port, they administer heparin to prevent infection. Normally, they should be clean. Yeah, you're right. Because I've heard of a lot of people getting infections in their port, and I'm like, how? I thought they normally would clean it every time, that they're doing that chemo. They should be flushing it out, right? Every time you do it. Otherwise, it would set up an infection. You don't want to get an infection in that port, because if you do, that means what? They're gonna have to go through your arm. They're gonna have to go through those veins. She says, absolutely monthly, and with a bilateral mastectomy with lymph nodes removed, they only could use one arm. They took, I already told y'all, they took 16 lymph nodes from me. and and they did not tell me that, and I learned this from other survivors. This is why it's important to talk to other survivors. They didn't tell me that we're taking these 16 lymph nodes out, and you may develop, or you will develop, lymphedema, and you should be wearing a sleeve, or you should be going to get some type of physical therapy, for the lymphedema or whatever. No, they never mentioned any of that. Never. I learned from talking to other survivors, and then you're like, okay, this arm, I mean, you can't hide it. The arm looks totally bigger than the other arm, so it's not like you can hide the arm. But you're like, okay, what's going on? And doctors, oh, you have lymphedema. And then they just give you a prescription, because I have the HMO. They give you a referral to go over and get a sleeve. That's it. I was just like, so what else am I supposed to do? And she's just like, nothing. Like, you wear your sleeve. You're supposed to wear the sleeve as long as you woke. As long as you up, you're supposed to wear the sleeve. I'm just like, what kind of life is that? Like, and yeah, they try to make the sleeves to where they're pretty and they're colorful. And this is like, yeah. So yeah, I need to be better about wearing my sleeve, but I don't. I just don't wear the sleeve. So what you can do is, before you start chemo, is, again, ask about the medications that you're going to be taking. Ask them what type of medication is included in this treatment. How much of the medication do I have to take? How is this medication going to kill cancer? What side effects am I going to encounter with this? How am I going to feel after I take this medicine? How should I cope with it? Who do I call if I have any issues from the side effects from this medicine? How soon should I call? And for everybody is different, right? So depending on how many rounds of infusion you're going to get. Normally the rounds, it's normally like 12 rounds. Some people have more. I had 16 rounds. So just depends on, again, the type of cancer, the stage of the cancer, how other things involved. So don't compare if somebody is getting 12 infusions and you're getting 16 infusions. So I know I did mine every Friday from February to the end of June, and I would come in at 9 o'clock, and I would leave there at 1. And so you just basically you're sitting. For me, I was basically just sitting in this call it a chemo chair, just a chair that like a lounge chair that kind of like you go to the movies, and it kind of you can put your feet up and lean back. And then they have the pole when you go to the doctor where they have all of the fluids. So they put the chemo goes through the fluid. It's fluid. It just has the word chemo on it, right? Going through your veins or your port. And I would just sit there. But before you go through the chemo, when you come in, they're going to do a blood test because they want to know if you have any issues. Because if you do, then you may not get chemo that day. So I can remember my doctor, I came in, I had a fever. I had a fever. It was 100 and something. And she was like, I think I was on I was so close to being finished. I think I was like maybe at 16. So may have been on like 13 or something. And the nurse, come in, the nurse do their thing. And the nurse is like, she has a fever. And she was like, you may not get treatment today because you have a fever, but I have to wait for the doctor to come. And of course, my doctor was like, we don't care about that fever. We doing treatment. Like, we not breaking treatment. We're going to go through, just push through. I was like, what? Like, who does that? So, and I was able to get through the treatment, fever and all. I didn't have any issues, but they will do a blood test every time you come in to see where your levels are at, to just see if you have an infection. And then if your count is low, then they will say no. So and I think it's just depends on the doctor. It's the doctor's call. Um, they just calculate, and I hadn't had any issues prior to that. So I guess she was like, "Oh, you can make it." So she just went ahead and did it. So it just depends. But if you feel like, "Nope, I don't want to do it. I got this fever. I'm sick here, and then you about to put these toxins in me. This is gonna make me more sicker. I don't want." Then you could say, "No, it's your body. You know exactly what you can handle and what you can't." Jacana said, "This is a club none of us wanted to be a part of, girl, and none of us are kicking the door down. No, to become sick." But she said, "I now belong to an amazing family of other survivors, caregivers. We are our best advocates." Girl, girl. I totally agree. This is not something I would have ever. This is not what I was planning for my future. Like, no, this was not under my radar. None of this. So the fact that it happened, I just decided that I didn't want to keep my mouth closed. I wanted to. I didn't really want anybody. Excuse me. I really didn't want anybody to go through cancer. So if I could say, help, advocate in any kind of way to get people to move towards action. Yeah, we're aware. We are aware all day, but if you don't do anything, if you don't take action, you know, before because with cancer they say early detection is key. And yeah, early detection is key. But early detection means you have cancer, it's just caught early. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have all of the issues that somebody has that's a stage 4. You still may have some issues. That cancer still has a chance of coming back because you have that cancer diagnosis. I'm waiting on them to say prevent. They always say decrease risk, but they never say totally prevent when it comes to breast cancer. It's just they always push early detection. And yes, early detection is important. It's important because the earlier you catch it, the less treatment hopefully you would have to have, right? The less maybe surgery. You may not have to do all of the normal standard treatments that they have. So yes, early detection is key. So I don't rule it out, But I wish that we could say something more than just when it comes to that early detection. Jakina said there is a side effect to everything. Everything. Okay. Everything. Everything. So before you even do the chemo, before they even hook the tubes up to the port for the chemo to drip in you, you have to take, I think I had to take at least 7 pills. Some of it is for nausea, so prevent you from being nauseated. Um, but you have 7 different pills. Well, for me, you're going to have medicine that you have to take before you do the chemo just to kind of protect you from what's happening. And I'm just like, how is this happen? How is this helping me? And this is why to this day I don't take no medicine. When I say I don't take no pills, nothing. Nothing. That was enough for me. That was enough for me. I was just wondering, how is all of this going to help me? How is none of this interacting with each other? That was a lot. So you have to take the medicine first, the post chemo medicine. Sometimes you have to take it before your chemo appointment and maybe the day before. Or sometimes they'll have you to take it when you get there and then you wait a little bit and then they give you the medicine. And it's to keep you sometimes from being sick from the chemo, right? Um, I never was nauseated from the medicine. I never vomited or anything like that. Uh, the main thing that I really had from the chemo, and this may sound gross, but I was constipated, and they wanted to give me something for the constipation. I was just like, no, I'm just gonna like do it naturally, like fruits, vegetables, water. Like I'm not about to take anything else. And that was my main thing that I was like, what is going on here? So, but I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has different things that they go through when it comes to chemo. So, and if you're going through any of that, you just let your doctor know, and they will make sure that they give you something for it, of course. And I would say going through chemo would be the time to take whatever, right? Because I mean, your immune system already shot from them wiping out these cells. So if you're going to take anything at that point, that would be the time to take it if you're going through chemo. Jakina says every pill, every surgery, side effects to treat something to save my life, but oh God, but breaking down something else in your body that may not show up until years later. This is what's happening in her case 10 years later. And I know this to be true because I've heard it from other cancer survivors, thrivers, right? Yeah, they give you this, and you like, oh, sometimes it just be to put a band-aid on something and it's really not helping. But then you thinking, okay, yeah, that helped me. And then 10 years later, you like, you need your heart is failing. Oh, your kidneys are failing. Oh, and you just like, what? Your lungs are what's going on? Oh, well, you remember the medicine that you took that, yeah, that was one of the side effects too. So sometimes cancer side effects don't happen right away. These are the long-term side effects to cancer. The short term would be you losing your hair, you losing the weight, and all of that little stuff, right? Those are the immediate side effect that comes when you take the chemo. But the long-term effects may not show up in your body until 10 years later. And now here you are dealing with this for something that you was taking that you thought was helping, that they told you was helping. And then later it's causing issues in the quality of your life that you have. That's important. And with cancer survivors, one of the things that's really important is the quality of life. Because of everything that you go through and you come out, and yeah, you want to come out as whole as possible, right? With all your parts if you can. And if you can't, most of them. But you want to be able to live a normal quality of life to where you feel normal and to where you feel whole. And then here 10 years later, they telling you something else is wrong. You just like, I can't win for losing. So those are the things that you take before treatment. So before you get any type of treatment, they should be educating you on what's going on, right? Normally, I think I watched a video. I watched a video about what was going to happen, the chemo, how they was going to hook everything up, um, how long the session was going to take. So they normally, that's how I did it. They normally maybe have you watch a video, maybe somebody's telling you about it so that you'll know what's happening. So there should be some type of education piece that happens before you have your first chemo appointment, right? So it will be after the port and all of that. Before you even have your first chemo appointment, you should be having some type of education. Now, they should do it before the first appointment. And some may do that. They shouldn't have you coming in, watching a video, and then you getting the chemo, because you need time to process this stuff. You need time to be like, okay, wait a minute. Now, for me, I feel like God was really strategic. There you go. Strategic when it came to my situation, because I had a chance to sit with my sister who passed away from cancer 3 years earlier in her one and only chemo appointment. So I got a chance to see what the setup looks like. But I never thought that I would be sitting in that same setup, but I got to see it. Then I went to go to the dentist, right? So I read somewhere, I was doing my research online, and I read somewhere that if you're going to get chemo, that you need to make sure you go to the dentist and you take care of your oral health, right? And so I went to the dentist, and my dentist, I told him, I said, hey, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I want to make sure, my oral health is right, because I know that you can't get any infections while you're going through treatment. He was like, okay. And he was like, you need 3 teeth to be pulled. I was like, what? I didn't come here for this. And he was like, you're gonna have to get them pulled, and you're gonna have to wait until they heal before you could do chemo. So I said, okay. He wrote me a note. I took it back to my oncologist, and she looked at me. She was like, are you serious? She was like, are you doing this on purpose? I was like, what? The dentist said I need 3 teeth to be pulled. I'm just telling you what he said. And so that gave me like a little break. And I believe this was God kind of like just easing me into it, right? Giving me time to process this thing. Okay, I know I got to do this chemo. At that point, I was like, Jesus, can you like Jesus was when he was, in the garden, he was like, Lord, can you move this cup if you move this? That was me, not to compare myself with Jesus, but I'm like, if you can move it, if you can move this cup from me, if you can move this, then I would rather for you to do it that way than have me go through this toxic being dripped into my body. Okay, Jesus had to go on the cross. Not comparing myself to Jesus, but everybody have their cross to bear. That's just my cross I had to bear. So I had to go. You have to process what's happening before you can even go through what's happening. So he kind of set me up to see what was happening. So when I went, I had a chance to see my setup of chemo, because when I got there, they were ready for me to do chemo. And I was like, nope, my dentist said I can't. I have to wait 3 weeks. And she was like, okay, I'll see you in 3 weeks. I was like, okay. So I went home, got myself prepared, just trying to get my body and my mind prepared for what was happening. Showed up that first day, me and my mom, I was ready. I was ready. And one of the things that I was kind of nervous about is because you don't know if the toxins are going to be start happening right there. Like you're going to be able to feel it happening, what's happening. So you don't know. So I didn't feel the first treatment. I felt nothing. Me and my mom went to eat. After every last one of my chemo appointments, we went to eat. Whoever was there with me, our routine was to go eat. And then that night, because I did it on Fridays, that night, I will go home and rest up, and then I will go dance because I'm my house head. So I will go dance. And that was my stress reliever. I would do it every Friday after every treatment, right? No matter how I felt, I don't care how fatigued I was, that's exactly what I did. And I could just remember my siblings and everybody calling my mom, like, is she okay? Like, what's going on? Was my mom's like, oh, we're eating. We're out to eat. They like, what? Or we at the mall. They just like, huh? How is she at the mall? So I would encourage you that if you're going through cancer and treatment, if you're able to get up and move, if you're able to get up and walk, and I'm not saying do a full workout, but if you're able to move and walking is just the easiest, best, most beneficial exercise that you can do, then do that. Walk. You can walk at your own pace, but you have to walk. You have to be able to keep your body moving even through the chemo because it's so toxic. But when you're exercising, when you're walking, it releases something in your body that help heals those cells. So walking is so important. I would say make sure that you are asking your medical team questions, right? So if you have any questions about anything, any medicine, any side effects, just anything pertaining to your health and cancer treatment, don't be shy. This is a chance for you to ask everything. Get educated about what's going on and what's going into your body. This is not time to be shy. I would say always have I call it a chemo buddy, right? A chemo buddy with you. Never go to your chemo appointments by yourself. Don't. No, you need some type of support there with you just to get your mind off of what's happening. A lot of times they're there to encourage you to, you may have something that you're listening to or something that you're reading or whatever, but just the fact that you have somebody else there with you, supporting you. When I was there, sometimes I would see people by themselves and I'm just like, how? Why are you here by yourself? And I always laugh and say my mom went to all of my chemo appointments except for my last one because she thought I wasn't going to show up. So she showed up to make sure I showed up. And I'm just like, really? So have someone there with you that's going to hold you accountable. And you may want to, they have organizations out here that would even pay for Ubers for individuals who are going through treatment. So if you don't feel like driving, they would take you to and from treatment or have someone to pick you up and take you because you may not feel like driving. Like, don't try to be, oh, I'm this superwoman. No, let somebody else do that. Although I did drive to my appointments, but don't do that. You don't have to. Just get somebody else to do it. That's just one less thing that you have to do. Believe me, your support system, they love you. They want to do it. So get somebody else to do it. My Leah says battle buddy sacks are a great support and encouragement for those going through chemo as well. So I created Battle Buddy sacks. And the Battle Buddy sacks, which I have about 15 of them at home that I need to take to the cancer treatment center right now. But Battle Buddy sacks is something that I created for individuals that are going through cancer, and I donate them to individuals who are going through, and I take some of them to the cancer treatment center so they can hand them out to individuals who are going through cancer. And so when you're donating to Warriors Talk, part of that money is going towards me buying the supplies, whatever it is that I'm putting in the Battle Buddy sack. And I try to not to make these little cheap sacks. That I want it to be stuff that they can use. So it could be a blanket. I put these spiritual coloring books in there. So when you're at the chemo appointment, you can color. It could be lotion, it could be stuff for your face, stuff for your lips. Like, it's different. Some earrings. Lisa Adams donated earrings. It's different things that you can put. Wanda B, she donated lotion for my Battle Buddy sack. So there is different things that I put in the sack that individuals can use while they're in treatment, right? I put books in the sack so that they can have something to keep them entertained. A lot of times I put lemon heads in the sack because lemon heads is like when you're going through chemo, it kind of takes that taste out of your mouth. So if you don't have a buddy to go with you, then you take your Battle Buddy sack and you make sure you prepare it and take it with you to every single infusion that you have so that it'll keep you entertained. It'll keep you encouraged. So don't go by yourself, right? Please take somebody with you when you go into treatment. It's important to allow people to help you get through it. Make sure you tell your employer what you're going through so that you can plan your days off without stress, right? You should be able to, whatever paperwork you have to fill out at work in order for you to be off work. Thankfully, my coworkers was donating me time, right? I had one supervisor, well, he was a director. He donated me a week of his time so that I would make sure I had time to be off. I had another employee donate me a week. Like, you know, people will do that. I don't know if your job allows it, but people were able to donate me time just so that I could be off. And when I say I missed no money, absolutely zero money going through my cancer treatment. Thank God. Thank God for that. I also had to speak to a dietitian because when you're going through cancer, again, it's wiping out bad cells, good cells in your diet. The way that you eat is going to change. You may not have an appetite. So you're going to be trying to force yourself to eat something because you want to be able to have strength to go through the chemo, to go through your another treatment. So I would say, because I had to do that, I had to speak to a dietitian. I had got down to like 140 pounds. I had to speak to a dietitian to say, hey, what's going on? I'm trying to eat. What should I eat? And I remember her saying, I was like, what kind of vitamins should I take, supplements? And she was like, none. She was like, if you're eating the right foods, then you should be able to get your supplements, what you need, your nutrition from your food. So let's work on that first, and if we need to add some type of supplements, then we would. But so talk to someone if you feel like you're not able to eat, you're not happy with, your weight loss or weight gain, then because sometimes chemo makes you gain weight. Cancer don't only make you lose weight. Sometimes the treatment makes you gain weight. I know because I got all the way up to 175 pounds. So, sometimes you have to speak to the dietitian about losing weight as well. I encourage everybody, if you're going through cancer treatment, to record everything, right? From when you get diagnosed, write down everything from the side effects that you might have, record your every infusion that you go, record, write in a journal, make sure so that you could go back and look at those things. A lot of people was telling me that they journaled while they was going through cancer, and then after cancer they was thinking about writing a book. Well, guess what? They was journaling all that time. They had enough for a book. So you just never know what you're gonna do with that information. So I would encourage you, even if you're journaling for yourself, even if you're doing videos for yourself or pictures for yourself or your family, like, do that so that you can look back 5-10 years from now and see, what a difference your life is and what you've been through. Sometimes you don't know what a warrior you are until you go back and be like, oh, I did that. I did that. I did that. Make sure you understand what the plan of action is. So I remember my doctor writing down what my plan of action was. And on that plan, it says to cure cancer, right? It didn't say to treat. It didn't say, it said to cure cancer. And I was like, ooh, why she put that on there? But okay, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that plan. So make sure you know and you understand what the plan is. Why am I doing 16 rounds of chemo? Why do I have to have radiation? Why do I have to have surgery? Like, try to understand, what is this? A lot of times they're going off your diagnosis, they're going off your stage, they're going off your grade, and they meet, and normally they're giving you what the standard of care is for that. And if you don't agree with it, then you should open your mouth and say, hey, I want to try this. And don't forget about clinical trials, right? A lot of times we forget about clinical trials. I would say go to clinicaltrial.gov and look for clinical trials that may benefit you, and it may be different from the medicine that you're taking. A lot of times with clinical trials, you're monitored more closely, because it's a trial, and they want to know if this medicine is working. So and if you're having any type of side effects, they're going to tend to it right away. So don't rule out clinical trials when it comes to cancer treatment. It's one of the things that a lot of people's lives have been prolonged because of clinical trials. I would say when you're going through cancer treatment, the one thing you want to do is stay hydrated. You want to be able to flush out those toxins and make sure that you're replenishing yourself. So when you go to the next session, and so I would do my chemo every Friday. And then, so I would take off work that Friday. And then I would have the weekend to kind of like rest up and then go to work Monday through Thursday. So you want to be able to make sure that you're hydrating yourself, you're flushing it out, even with your food as well, right? You try. It's kind of hard to try to build up the immune system when next week you're going to go and flush it out, but you want to be able to feel good in the process until you go back to the doctor. I'm telling you, water is going to be your best friend. Going to be your best friend. Self care is important while you're going through. Don't neglect. You may not be able to get your nails done, you may not have any hair, but go and get a wig. They have so many different wigs out here that you can wear if that's what you want. Some people may not want a wig, then you may want to rock your bald head. I said, if you got the head shape for it, then yes, do that. Some people may want to do scarves and hats, do that. I would say if you know that the chemo is going to take your hair out, then take control of it and cut it before it starts coming out. Invite all your friends and family over and have a shaving party. Let them take turns in shaving parts of your hair off. Like, just include them in on it. Don't sit there and week after week you trying to hold on to this little hair and you waking up and there's clumps of hair in the bed. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that. I didn't do that. I called my girlfriend that does hair and I said, "Hey, I need you to shave me." And she gave me the runaround for a couple of weeks. And then one day I just called her and I'm like, "What you doing?" She was like, "None." I'm like, "You at home?" She was like, "Yep." I was like, "Come open the door." I'm at the door. And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Yep, I need my hair shaved." It was emotional for both of us because we've been friends like 30 something years. But I couldn't think of anybody else doing that but her. And it made her feel like she was a part of the journey. So take control of that. If it's going to fall out, take control and just get it off. Get it off. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes we, again, move that S off your chest and ask for help. This is one time that nobody should, look at you funny or make you feel any type of way because you're asking for help. Allow people to help you. Allow them to help you. Accept the help. And then remember to rest, relax, and recover is going to be so important for you in your healing process that you get the rest that you need. You guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this topic. Share it with someone that you know that may be going through chemo or getting ready to go through chemo so that they'll be able to go through chemo with like a boss. We talked about being a boss last week on Warriors Talk. Cancer is not a punk, and so you're gonna have to take charge. Take charge of cancer. You guys, Warriors Talk is always looking for individuals to be a guest on Warriors Talk. If that is you and you want to share your journey, then make sure you inbox me and let me know that you are ready to share. Thank you to our sponsor, Gloria Dotson with Mary Kay. She's catering to all of your beauty needs from head to toe. You can go to marykay.com/GDOTSON and let her know that Warriors Talk sent you. Warriors Talk is also, we will be celebrating our 8th annual Survivors Night of Reflection Gala, taking place on October the 19th at the Crystal Sky Banquet Hall, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We are looking for survivors to attend the event as well as their supporters. We're going to award a Survivor of the Year, and then we're going to financially award a Warrior in Battle. This is year 8. This is the year of new beginnings. You guys, don't go anywhere. We are on Intellectual Radio, and coming up next is Pillow Talk with God. And I will leave you with these words of wisdom. Cancer is only going to be a chapter in your story. It is not the whole book. Thank you, my Leah, for tuning in. You guys, join me next Monday right here on Intellectual Radio at 6 p.m. As always, thank you for tuning in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we are changing lives one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number